Number 10. The 7-year separation. Kicking off the list is of course the cheating rumors and dating scandals that have followed this couple throughout their entire relationship. Since day one, people have been convinced that they're in an open relationship, or maybe that they've been cheating on each other on and off the entire time, but it turns out that those rumors were kinda true. Ahead of the release of her new book, Worthy, Jada sat down with People magazine to share some inside information. The most revealing was that herself and Will Smith have actually been separated for 7 years now. Despite appearing to be a happy couple on the outside, the truth was they decided to go their separate ways, emotionally speaking, a long time ago. Since 2016, Jada and Will have been living in the same house and appearing on red carpets together, but behind the scenes they actually just don't do anything together. Considering the massive size of Will's house, it's pretty easy to imagine Jada choosing her own section and just like decorating it to her liking. She continued to say that she felt pressured into being with Will in the first place because it was mostly his idea to get together. 2 kids and 1 marriage later, it would appear that Jada finally came to her senses and just decided to separate from Will entirely. Number 9. Dating Chris Rock. Ahead of the release of her new book Worthy, Jada has revealed a ton of information that were once thought to be just rumors. Now, while we've already covered the fact that she's been separated from Will for like 7 years, another fun piece of information was revealed. I don't know if fun's the right word to use, maybe unique. Anyway, it was revealed that before Chris Rock was struck across the face by Will Smith live at the Oscars, Chris had actually asked Jada-Pinkett Smith out on a date. Now, I'm sure that when you hear that you must think, oh, he asked her out before they even met. Nope, that actually took place in 2016 at the height of the first round of separation rumors, which again turned out to just be so true. At the time, Chris either had some inside information or maybe his belief, or he just believes everything he's read online. According to Jada, Chris reached out to see if he could, get her attention. He called and said that he would love to take her out, which she was like, why? He clarified and told Jada that he was under the impression that herself and Will were getting a divorce. Like, right, that's what he just heard. Well, when she revealed that this wasn't the case, Chris was so embarrassed and just started apologizing over and over. Though they eventually moved past the moment, it might explain why Will Smith was so aggressive with Rock at the Oscars. There's no way he's unaware of that situation. Number 8. Divorce. Jada revealed that despite her and Will being separated for 7 years, that getting a legitimate divorce was out of the question. While they haven't been a proper couple for a very long time, Jada has always been adamant that she would never file the paperwork to properly separate from Will for good. Over the years, they have been at each other's side, and even after the secret separation, they were seen together as if nothing had happened. While they presented a united front, conversations later on the matter suggested that the two had actually spoken about it at one point or another. During Will's appearance on Jada's now cancelled show, Red Table Talk, the topic of divorce came up once again. Will said that he'd never get a divorce because it was something that he had already done and he tried to avoid it if possible. Jada laughed and said, yeah, that's not an option. But when she had Toni Braxton on as a guest, she claimed that she simply just wasn't mature enough to get divorced, which made it sound like that she was down to leave Will, but she just couldn't at that time. Well, considering the amount of media attention that this news is getting, something tells me she might be filing that paperwork sooner than we think. Number 7. Interview evidence. When Jada revealed the truth about her separation from Will, she claimed that by the time they reached 2016, they had become exhausted with trying to make things work. The news of their separation was like a mild shock at best, because Super Sleuth fans claimed to have proof that Will and Jada had been separated. The proof was in the interviews. The first clip to be submitted as evidence was Will and Jada's Red Table Talk interaction, in which she admitted to the entanglement with musician Alsina, but she simultaneously admitted to a brief separation between her and Will. In the conversation, she literally says that herself and Will had basically broken up, but instead of just outright admitting the information right then and there, she decided to hold on to it for a better time. Many Jada fans have commented on the resurfaced clip, saying that Will looks drained, clearly dealing with a ton mentally speaking. Jada is a calculated woman. Why reveal all this juicy gossip so early in her life, right? She was probably ready to tell the world what happened as soon as it did, but held on to the information as a way to give her a boost in the future. Is it really a surprise that she's releasing all this information right when she's about to publish a book? Huh? Give them a scoop so they have to buy it and get more information. Good move, but a manipulative one at that. Number 6. That's what she said. As we all know by now, Will Smith doesn't like Chris Rock putting his wife's name in his mouth. After the altercation that took place at the Oscars in 2022, a ton of people were convinced that it was Jada who told Will Smith to do it. Will was laughing moments before taking the stage and doing his thing. According to Jada, she actually had zero part in that altercation and thought the entire thing was a skit right up until she saw Will walking back towards his seat. The fury in this man's eyes could not be faked. She revealed that she actually didn't mind the G.I. Jane joke all that much. Sure, she didn't appreciate it, but according to her, she in no way told Will Smith to go strike her Madagascar co-star. The first thing that she had apparently said to him when he sat down was simply, "Are you okay?" Something in Will snapped. He went up to accept his award for Best Actor and later apologized for his actions. Despite the apology, he was banned from attending the Oscars for 10 years, and so far, he has not spoken to Chris Rock face to face. Speaking of the Oscars, number 5, Oscars confusion. Now that all this information is being leaked into the world by Jada herself, there's been one major question still lingering on everybody's mind. If she hasn't been with Will for over 7 years, why did he feel that it was necessary to defend her and strike Chris Rock at the Oscars? Many fans have flooded social media with questions and concerns surrounding this incident. If you don't remember, in 2022, Chris Rock made fun of Jada being bald and Will smacked him for that. That's it. If he had been attending Chris Rock's stand-up special, who knows what would have happened, but I'm gonna talk about that in a couple minutes. Despite Will claiming that playing the role of King Richard had left him in this odd mental state, it really was no excuse for his outburst, especially if he had not been romantically involved with Jada in years. Main point being made by some is that despite Will and Jada separating, they remained close friends. In that instance, Will was defending his very good friend, which is still no excuse for causing Marty the zebra pain. Man, I love Madagascar. Will has claimed that he tried to reach out to Chris following the Oscars, but that he was told Chris just isn't ready to talk. Either that, or Chris was ready, but he knew he'd fly off the handle the moment that he heard Will's voice. Number 4, Jaden and Willow. Of course, rumors had been flying around for years that Willow and Jaden Smith basically raised themselves. Their upbringing was a little different. Jaden was on track to being an actor after starring in the 2008 remake of Karate Kid alongside Jackie Chan, the greatest man on earth, but later shifted his focus to a more entrepreneurial side of things, developing his own fashion brand, which he's actually been pretty successful in doing. And his sister Willow opted to stick with her creative roots and made quite the name for herself in the hip-hop world. Now, unfortunately, their behavior comes from a place of neglect. During an episode of Red Table Talk, Jaden confronted his parents, calling out their terrible parenting skills. With both being so busy in their careers and now we know separated, there was never anybody home to actually take care of them. Jaden and Willow recount spending most of their childhood with various nannies and teachers, only seeing their parents between projects or if they got dragged along to work with them. It turns out they were well aware of this whole separation thing going on from the very beginning. Will and Jada must have just been waiting until the kids were financially independent and out of the house to finally call it quits. Something that they probably just should have done a lot sooner. Number 3, the roasting of Will and Jada. Chris Rock delivered the first ever live stand-up special on Netflix this year. Chris Rock's Selective Outrage was a title made in reference to Will Smith. His special was filled with a lot of jokes, but he closed out the night with a little roast of Will and Jada. He started by saying that he had nothing to do with the slap and that Will had selective outrage. Chris didn't have any entanglements, so why was Will so mad at him? But he then repeatedly called Will Smith a B-word and then moved on to roast Jada. He said that he was shocked when she attempted to have him removed as the host of the Oscars back in 2016 during the whole Oscars so white controversy, begging the question, how can Jada boycott something that she wasn't even invited to? The roasts were devastating and Chris Rock is most certainly the winner in that battle. Now, this has nothing to do with Will and Jada's marriage. I just figured if you made it this far into the video, you could use a little chuckle. Number 2, Chris and Will were friends. Before the infamous 2022 altercation at the Oscars, Chris Rock and Will Smith had actually been on pretty good speaking terms. Now, they weren't best friends by any means, but they certainly weren't mortal enemies prepared to strike each other down at the mention of one of their wives. They first met on the set of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air back in its heyday when Rock played two characters, an actor named Maurice Perry and his sister Jasmine. They bumped into each other over the years, but Chris eventually starred alongside Jada in an animated series that I've been referencing called Madagascar. Fun fact, I didn't even know that she was in that movie growing up because I did not read the credits. I was too cool for that jazz. Between Madagascar 1 and the Oscars in 2022, things just were neutral. There was no bad juju, but then suddenly at the behest of his wife Jada, he felt it was necessary to stand up and defend her even though they weren't even together. So what's that about? And at number 1, PR stunt. As previously mentioned, it's no surprise that Jada has shared her juicy gossip only days before her new book is set to hit shelves, but many speculate that her entire life is just one big PR stunt. Over the years, she has been in the media for a lot of things, whether it's boycotting the Oscars, getting fired from her own talk show, or just the general nonsense that comes from this lady. She's a force in Hollywood and not a good one. This latest stunt is nothing more than a PR tactic and a way to continue her media presence. She just revealed some of the secrets in her book. When the thing actually comes out, who knows what else there will be in store.
At number 10, we have her bringing Will on her podcast. Jada has a podcast with her mother and their shared daughter, and she has celebrity guest stars on it often as well. There was one point where she even decided to have Will on said podcast. But it wasn't just a get to know you kind of segment. She wanted to publicly record them talking about the issues in their relationship. As you can expect, she benefited from it, because she can be an awful person like that. And she was the only one of the two of them who felt like it helped emotionally and mentally. Will was distraught for most of the episode and just looked crushed and defeated throughout it. Of course, it went viral, and even now, the sad Will Smith memes are still fairly popular. The episode made it more than obvious that he's been really unhappy in his marriage, and we can't really blame him, honestly. It made the top of the list because Jada seemed so happy to be there and discussing the issues that humiliated him, even though she could clearly see how upset it made him. And if that doesn't sum up their marriage, I don't know what does. At number 8, we have her boyfriend sharing his side of the story. While she and Will were on an apparent break in their marriage, she decided it would be okay to have another relationship with rapper Alsina, who happened to be one of her son's close friends. However, after rumors started circulating, he did an interview with Vulture and said that his coming clean about their relationship was to clear the air, and that it was necessary to move forward in their relationship together. On the opposite end of this, Jada was trying to cover it up for the duration of their fling, and when he let the cat out of the bag, she had nowhere to hide. I mean, who wouldn't want to hide when you're dating someone while still legally married and he happened to be 20 years younger than you? He agreed with Jada that their relationship was an entanglement because it was complex and taboo, and the only reason they didn't work out was because the news of their relationship was detrimental to his work life, not just his personal life. So not only did she embarrass Will by dating someone else while they were legally married, she embarrassed August and made his life extremely complicated, all for a few months of fun. At number 8, we have filming without Will's permission. This one is a little less drastic than some of the other points on the list, but she made Will very uncomfortable and didn't really understand what she was doing wrong. After the Chris Rock incident, people were going back through their media documented marriage moments just to see if she's done anything like that before, and a lot of people landed on one specific clip of Jada's Instagram Live from 2019. She was talking about their marriage counselor and faced the camera towards Will and asked if their counselor was really helping them redefine their marriage. He looked annoyed and rather uncomfortable, then responded with, "I would say just don't start filming without asking me first if you could." But instead of respecting his wishes, she continued to try and film his response, with limited success. So while she didn't embarrass him on live television, she did embarrass him on her Instagram Live. At number 7, we have attempting to defend their marriage. Jada has put her foot down a handful of times, stating that they didn't have an open relationship, but she had posted some Facebook comments and made comments that contradict that. On her Facebook page, she attempted to clear up the rumors and help the situation, but all it did was open a can of worms. She said that they had an unconventional marriage, and while they aren't in an open relationship, monogamy is something they choose. That isn't entirely true. Monogamy was something she chose. It was something that Will would follow through with through their entire marriage. He didn't run around with his kids' friends and then defend the relationship because they were on a break. She also said that they both had the option to do whatever they pleased because they trusted each other, which seems like she was trying to shift the blame to make her look less like the bad guy. She finished the post by saying they did not have an open relationship, they have a grown one. This is contradictory in itself because her actions only made them grow apart rather than as a couple, and she was the only one in the relationship doing the growing. At number 6, we have her talking about their relationship issues. Like I had mentioned in an earlier point, Jada hosts a podcast with her mother and her daughter, which is called Red Table Talks, if you want to look for it. On one of the episodes they had recorded, she had the ever so hated Gwyneth Paltrow as a guest star. Part of their discussion was about intimacy, both in general and in their relationships. So in classic Jada fashion, she opened up about her intimacy issues with Will. Not only did she publicly have a long-term relationship with one of her son's friends, but she also had the nerve to blame their intimate issues on Will. She admitted she wanted him to read her mind to know what she liked, rather than communicating her feelings like an adult. She then claimed that she expects her partner to know what she likes, even if she never verbally shared how she felt, and finished off by saying she just somehow wasn't satisfied with him. Not only did she embarrass herself on her podcast, but she also embarrassed Will right along with her. At number 5, we have the clash with Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg is known across the world for his music, his silly antics, his hefty interest in herbology, and for popping up in the most random places, like on a talk show with Kevin Hart, a cooking show with Martha Stewart, and a Bic commercial. Everyone knows who he is. So when Jada attempted to go toe-to-toe with him after Kobe Bryant's accident, it made everyone hide their eyes in secondhand embarrassment. After Bryant's passing, it came to light that he was in a court case for having lack of communication with a 19-year-old. This was before he married his wife, I might add. The case was dropped due to lack of evidence, and the accuser had nothing concrete. He then married his wife in 2001, so it had been almost 2 decades since the incident. Gayle King brought up the case during his wake, which was really disrespectful and uncalled for. It caused insane backlash from people and celebrities alike, and Snoop Dogg was one of them who made it very clear how he felt about the situation. Jada didn't like his response and invited him on her podcast in an attempt to clear things up. She claimed she felt hurt on behalf of all women because of the way he spoke to Gayle, and she felt like he had taken power away from her, her mother, and her daughter, which makes no sense. Gayle overstepped her boundary and Snoop called her on it. The situation had literally nothing to do with Jada. She just happened to see it and felt like she needed to be involved. At number 4, we have her mocking the party he threw. For Jada's 37th birthday, Will decided it would be a great idea to throw a massive surprise party. Now, it wasn't just their celebrity friends and some close family and what have you. He hired party planners to set it up and spent 3 days planning and getting everything ready. He even booked Mary J. Blige to perform for her. Talk about a birthday gift. But that's not all. He traced her family roots and invited her family members from her long line of lineage. Not only did he find her family, he went out of his way to reach out to them and invite them to the party. You'd think she would appreciate his labor of love, but instead she threw it back in his face, claiming he only did it to display his ego. And she hated the fact that he went out of his way to throw her the party. He admitted he was devastated when she said those hurtful things, and it even sent him on a downward spiral that negatively impacted his life. This should have been one of the biggest of many red flags. At number 3, we have her feelings for Tupac. For those of you who don't know, Jada was in a long-term relationship with Tupac years before she met Will, and his untimely passing was the end of their relationship. It's normal and even healthy to miss someone who passed, especially when you were romantically involved with them for a few years. But in 2012, while she and Will were still married, she posted a picture of her and Tupac in a very intimate embrace and captioned the photo, "I miss him." It makes sense wanting to share your deep feelings with the world, especially when they're affecting you most. But it was a questionable photo to choose to post, especially when you're married to someone else. Not to mention, Will and Jada's daughter Willow wrote a letter addressed to Tupac after he passed because Willow claimed she knew he was still alive. One of the lines in the letter read, "Can you please come back so mommy and me can be happy? I think mommy really misses you." It seems sweet and rather innocent, but at a young age, she was aware of how much he still had a hold on Jada, and she wanted him to come back into their lives, which at that point seemed like it could have been the end of Will and Jada's marriage. Nothing came of it, obviously, but it makes you question how much Willow really knew about the situation. At number 2, we have how she never really wanted to marry Will. When you get married to someone, it's supposed supposed to be forever. That's the point of marriage, is to link two people's lives together for a lifelong commitment of love and trust. So it's less surprising what Jada did in their marriage when she admitted she never really wanted to get married. She and Will got married when they were very young, and it was actually Jada's mother who pressured her into the marriage because she really liked Will and saw the potential in him. However, that decision aged poorly because of her heinous actions that I covered in some of the points above. For Will's birthday, she posted a fairly old photo of them with their two kids and one of Jada's sons from one of her previous relationships. Many fans sent birthday wishes, but there were a few who made snarky remarks and rehashed lines from Red Table Talks, contradicting the post. Some people commented on how she didn't love him romantically, and a clip came up of her saying how she cried all the way down the aisle because she didn't want to be married to him, and how she felt pressure to be wed, even though she never wanted to be married in general. At least she's happy with him 28 years later, with multiple affairs and many humiliating moments for both of them. And last but not least, at number 1, we have the slap. Of course, the infamous slap made number 1. The situation went down at the 94th Academy Awards, and that same evening, Will actually won the Best Actor award for his performance in King Richard. But that wasn't the only performance that night. He and Jada were sitting relatively close to the front when Chris Rock was on the stage accepting an award and made a joke directed at Jada. He was referencing her bald head when he asked if she was going to be in G.I. Jane. Will laughed because Chris Rock is funny, and Jada wasn't having it. She rolled her eyes and looked at Will with a piercing gaze because she wanted him to do something about it. So he waltzed up on stage and gave Chris Rock a full swing slap to the face, then proceeded to yell at him, saying to keep Jada's name out of his mouth. Of course, the meme circulated and everyone heard about it. But Jada came out later saying that she'd been struggling with alopecia for years, and at this point, all she could do was laugh or not take it to heart. Neither of which she did when she ended up getting her and her husband blacklisted from the Academy Awards.
In at number 10, Judd Apatow. After the shocking altercation, some celebrities took to Twitter to share how much they disagreed with Will Smith's actions. Director Judd Apatow was probably the most vocal, who said in a series of tweets, quote, "Seems like Will Smith's plan to get comedians and the world to not make jokes about him is not going to pan out. The Williams family must be furious. Pure narcissism. Also, G.I. Jane was gorgeous. What exactly is insulting about being compared to a ripped, stunning Demi Moore?" He then replied to a tweet that mentioned that Will did what he did because Rock was insulting her alopecia. Apatow doubled down, writing, quote, "He could have killed him. That's pure out of control rage and violence. They've heard a million jokes about them in the last 3 decades. They're not freshmen in the world of Hollywood and comedy. He lost his mind." Apatow has since deleted the tweets, but we can assume he meant every word. In at number 9, Tiffany Haddish. Tiffany Haddish was one of the few celebrities who decided to support Will Smith's actions. She stated how much she loved to see a husband standing up for his wife. It probably also helped that Haddish and Pinkett Smith are friends and starred in the movie Girls Trip together. Haddish told People, quote, "When I saw a black man stand up for his wife, that meant so much to me. As a woman who has been unprotected, for someone to say, 'Keep my wife's name out of your mouth, leave my wife alone,' that's what your husband is supposed to do, right? Protect you." And maybe the world might not like how it went down, but for me it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen because it made me believe there are still men out there that love and care about their women. Adding that she thought it was beautiful because it proved that there are husbands that still care about their wives. In at number 8, Sophia Bush. One Tree Hill star Sophia Bush tried to see both sides of the situation and tweeted out, quote, "Violence isn't okay, assault is never the answer. Also, this is the second time that Chris has made fun of Jada on the Oscars stage, and tonight he went after her alopecia. Punching down at someone's autoimmune disease is wrong. Doing so on purpose is cruel. They both need a breather." I do appreciate how she tried to see both sides of things because both men are wrong in some ways. Chris Rock also joked about Pinkett Smith at the 2016 Oscars. Her and Will decided not to go that year to protest the lack of diversity at the award show. While hosting, Rock said, quote, "Jada said she's not coming to protest. I'm like, isn't she on a TV show? Jada's going to boycott the Oscars? Jada boycotting the Oscars is like me boycotting Rihanna's panties. I wasn't invited." He also took a jab at Will and added a comment about Will's lack of nomination that year, saying, quote, "It's not fair that Will was this good and didn't get nominated. You're right. It's also not fair that Will was paid $20 million for Wild Wild West, okay?" He said, referencing one of Smith's biggest flops. In at number 7, Lupita Nyong'o. One of the celebrities whose live reaction to the incident has gone viral is Lupita Nyong'o. Lupita was seated right behind Will Smith, so when he sat down after slapping Chris Rock, we got a clear view of exactly how she was feeling. It was the same shock and horror that most of us were experiencing at that time. Lupita won Best Supporting Actress in 2014 for her role in 12 Years a Slave and was at the 2022 ceremony to hand out the Best Costume Design award. She looked incredibly uncomfortable as she sat inches away from Will as he raged at Chris Rock on stage. One person tweeted along with her picture, quote, "Give Lupita Best Supporting Actress for her work tonight." This is now being called her second best moment at the Oscars. The first was when she took part in Ellen DeGeneres' then social media breaking selfie from the 2014 ceremony. And at number 6, Denzel Washington. Another celebrity that supported Will Smith after his outburst was Denzel Washington. During the commercial break of the show, journalists noted that Will was seen talking to Washington and Tyler Perry for an extended period of time. Will was breaking down and looking for support from the men. The Hollywood Reporter's columnist Scott Feinberg captured the moment when Denzel Washington approached Smith during a commercial break and shared it on Twitter Sunday night. The reporter added, quote, "Will appears to wipe tears away from his eyes as he sits back down with Jada, with Denzel comforting Jada and Will's rep by his side." Then during his speech for Best Actor, Will revealed what Denzel said to him, saying, quote, "At your highest moment, be careful, that's when the devil comes for you." It seems the pair are good friends. During another interview, Will said, quote, "He knew me years ago. I would go to Denzel for advice, so he's seen me through the years and he was just telling me how proud he is of who I've become and what I've become." Halfway at number 5, Nicole Kidman. Nicole Kidman easily had the most memeable reaction to the slap, and thankfully photographers captured the moment where her jaw was dropped as low as it could go. Kidman was seated in the front row, so not only did she get a clear view of the slap, we got an unobstructed view of her reaction. I really think hers is the perfect reaction to the slap because it was just so shocking. My face probably looked about the same when I saw it. Kidman is well known for another notable Oscars moment when her seal-looking clap was put on display. Thankfully, this will now be the new meme starring her. And at number 4, Serena Williams. Serena Williams was also in the front row of the show as her father and life story was showcased in the movie King Richard. Since she had such a deep connection to the film, many were wondering what her and her sister Venus's reaction would be to the outburst. She broke her silence on Instagram, where she simply shared a video of her mouth hanging open with her eyes wide, clearly showcasing what we were all feeling, utter disbelief. She then followed this up with another video, saying, quote, "I just sat down because I was like, I gotta put that drink down," again looking in shock. It was clearly a reference to what just happened. The sisters have said nothing more. Many are wondering if the family is hurt that Will would hurt the legacy of the film or if they approve of what he did. And at number 3, Nick Viall. Nick Viall, former Bachelor contestant, gave his thoughts on the slap, and he was asked to compare it to the drama on The Bachelor. Viall said what happened at the Oscars was, quote, "way more dramatic than what happens on The Bachelor." Adding, quote, "I think most people just wondered if it was like a bit or a joke, if it was fake. I think pretty quickly we realized it was serious." I also shared that he felt bad for Chris Rock, adding, quote, "Chris Rock is there to be a comedian. He tells jokes. Obviously, there's going to be some at the expense of people. Everyone has a right to feel how they feel, and we have our hurt feelings, but how we handle our hurt feelings matters." Val continued that he doesn't think Smith handled his feelings in the best way, but added that his performance in King Richard was amazing and he deserved the win. And at number 2, Ethan Klein. One YouTuber that made their thoughts incredibly clear was Ethan Klein, who posted a string of tweets denouncing Will's actions. He wrote, quote, "Will Smith just a walking L since his wife decided to start weekly humiliating him on her Facebook show. Probably should deal with whatever trauma he has with her instead of punching Chris Rock in the face for an extremely tame joke. He needs to be escorted out of the Oscars, L." Adding in another tweet, quote, "Will Smith won and got a standing ovation. I'm in awe. The show went on like nothing happened. Will Smith punched a comedian for doing his job. He's a celebrity in the front row of the Oscars where it's normal to be roasted. Bad taste or not, defending Will equals brain rot." Many pointed out that Will only did so because Chris made fun of his wife's alopecia, but Klein did not back down and said that that's no reason to slap someone in the face, which I completely agree with. And finally at number 1, Howard Stern. Howard Stern did not hold back on his Monday morning radio show, completely blasting Will Smith for his actions. Stern said, quote, "What you saw on TV was a guy with real issues. That's crazy. That's crazy when you can't contain yourself." His co-host Robin Quivers called the assault a, quote, "blindsided attack," noting that Rock had no idea that the hit was coming. Both Stern and Quivers blasted the Academy for not immediately ejecting Smith from the event, with Stern adding, quote, "You don't provide security, you don't have someone to come up there, Chris Rock was just trying to make people laugh at the ceremony, which is so long and boring." Comic Nikki Glaser also called into the show to agree, with her adding that she's afraid of what might happen to other comedians when they make risky jokes at a comedy club. All three blasted the inaction from other celebrities in the room and the Academy for doing nothing.
Starting off our list today at number 10, we have Forced to Marry Will, with Jada-Pinkett Smith and Will Smith's marriage being the top subject when it comes to scandals over the last year. It's left us all wondering when Jada might just stop, grow up, and stop making jabs at her husband in an attempt to embarrass him any further. When the actress's reaction after the Oscar ceremony in 2022 was to condemn her husband for slapping Chris Rock, the incident led the press to review previously published content around the couple. And a video then re-emerged from 2018, where in it, Jada could be seen stating that she never wanted to get married and she was forced to marry Will because she was pregnant. The video would actually turn out to be an episode from her Red Table Talk podcast, which featured her, Will, their daughter Willow, and Jada's mother. In the interview, Jada would say she was under so much pressure and she didn't know what to do, but her mother forced her to marry Will. Number 9. Substance use. Back in 2021, Jada would candidly detail her past issues with substances and alcohol, where she would say that she was a walking miracle after kicking her addictions. During her Red Table Talk, Jada would open up about how she used to combine wine with other forms of substances when she developed a tolerance to solely drinking. She would then go on to say, "I wasn't doing things that I thought were addictive, but I would do those three together. That was my cocktail. Your threshold becomes so high that what it takes for you to get to the place you need to get to, it will take me 2 bottles to get to, okay? If I do substances with alcohol at the same time, I get there faster and I can keep the feeling going." Jada then said she went cold turkey one day after she had a health scare on the set of the 1996 The Nutty Professor, as she passed out on set and made a total fool of herself. Hey my little peaches, are you liking this video so far? If so, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Number 8. Comments about the Oscars. Just when the confrontation that happened between Will Smith and Chris Rock had become one of the most discussed topics around the world, a lot of people had their say on the comedian's joke and the actor's decision to respond by slapping the comedian. And if things couldn't get any better, Jada-Pinkett Smith then broke her silence on the issue when she chose to write a message on her social media account saying, "This is a season for healing and I'm here for it." Though Jada didn't say anything during the controversial moment, she did, however, make sure she was in the center of it going forward, as she claimed that she hoped Will and Chris could eventually heal and reconcile one day, and that she never forced her husband to slap Chris. Her and Will were moving forward and were going to focus on their lives. But it all just seemed a little too sus, and she shouldn't have said anything, and she should have just more supported her husband through this hard time. Number 7. The controversial podcast. When it comes to the Red Table Talk, it's definitely a one-of-a-kind talk show that features a one-of-a-kind family. While the show was created with good intentions, as the family just wanted to create a safe space where they could talk about some pretty weird topics, the conversations have become real, raw, unfiltered conversations, where not only the family has exposed their darkest secrets, but other celebrities as well. And while the show has gone on to gain quite an impressive fan base, the in-depth conversations have become pretty controversial when it comes to the hot-button issues that are discussed, and it has hurt Jada's career to the point she can't even get casted in anything, and she really hasn't worked on anything since her role in the Scream franchise. Number 6. The Matrix controversy. The Matrix franchise is well known for revolutionizing the cinema world with its stunning visuals and graphics. From the very release of the first movie, The Matrix made an everlasting impact on the souls of the audience, with the franchise being represented well by Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss. Did you know that the hit duo actually could have been represented by celebrity couple Will Smith and Jada-Pinkett Smith? But since Will Smith refused to play the hit character of Neo in the blockbuster franchise, as the actor was in no mood to shoot another Alien movie after Independence Day, Jada-Pinkett Smith would fail to be selected for the role, and she blames it on Will, as she didn't have any chemistry with Reeves, which resulted in her to lose the role. uncomfortable. So it goes on to show that she just has trouble connecting with other people on set when they aren't her friend or family members. The actress did, however, go on to grab a role in the franchise after she lied about not being pregnant. Number 5. Scientology affiliation. Reports have been stating for years now that Jada-Pinkett Smith has had strong ties to the Church of Scientology. Although she has never publicly subscribed to the belief system, many sources have claimed that not only did she once practice Scientology, but she was also heavily involved in it. The information would come to light after a former Scientologist told the Daily Mail that not only was Jada a member, but she was also a recruiter who was paid to lure people into the church. The source also went on to say Jada was always around the celebrity center, doing things her own way with Kelly Preston in the president's office. Tony Ortega, who has extensively covered celebrity involvement in Scientology, also said on his blog, The Underground Bunker, "We have known for years that the dedicated Scientology in the family was Jada Smith." And Jada's alleged connections to Scientology did not stop there. In fact, they only appeared to get stronger over time, as she also went on to open a private school for the church in one of her homes. Number 4. Too full of herself. When the Los Angeles Times caught up with Hubert to ask her to clarify her criticism of Jada, Hubert would claim that Jada and her husband clearly needed to get over themselves when she said, "You ain't all that, you're not kings and queens, you're not royalty, you're simply entertainers." But that's clearly not how the Smiths see it. Vivica A. Fox once even fought back tears as she spoke about Jada-Pinkett Smith's remarks about her husband smacking Will Smith at the Academy Awards in 2022, when the actress said on an episode of Wendy Williams' show that Jada took no accountability for her role in the incident on her Red Table Talk. Fox then went on to explain she believes Jada played a part in the incident when she said, "Will was defending her honor. That's the reason he walked on the stage and slapped, because he felt like his wife had been offended." She then went on to note that because Jada took no accountability, it made her seem so self-righteous and full of herself. Number 3. Bad parenting. So before I get into the bad parenting aspect, I think it's worth mentioning that Will and Jada's kids once freaked out Sony executives to the point they emailed Will about the issues, and he just responded by saying everyone just disses his kids. However, Sony isn't the only ones to question Jada's and Will's parenting, as when Willow was pictured in bed with a 20-year-old man in 2014, it would spark a police investigation. Radar Online would then post an article where they would state the Los Angeles Department of Children and Family Services were looking into the snap of Willow, who was 13 at the time, that was posted online and then later deleted. Will and Jada were extremely cooperative with officials, but they weren't so happy that their parenting skills were under scrutiny. Jada would then break her silence about the issues and would say that there was nothing wrong with the picture or the situation. Number 2. The affair. It seems like just after the whole world was done talking about Jada's affair with her son's friend August Alsina, it would be brought out again after new details were released to the public earlier this month. As after August watched Chris Rock's Netflix special, he told the Post he thought it was not only funny, but it was also truthful. And that was the best part for him. So when Rock finally went public about his thoughts about being slapped by Will Smith at the 2022 Oscars in his Netflix comedy special Selective Outrage, he would speculate that Smith only smacked him not over his joke about Jada's baldness, but because he was unleashing built-up anger he had over his wife's affair. A source would then confirm that August was happy to see Chris Rock advocating the truth, as everyone has been against him since the whole affair was exposed. And considering Jada downplayed their relationship with her son's friend for 4 years, Will was led to believe that nothing was going on until she embarrassed him on the Red Table Talk, and since Hollywood has been wondering what kind of woman she exactly is, because she's not normal, that's for sure. And coming in number 1 today, we have Not in Demand. After a promising breakout performance as Maureen in the 1997 film Scream 2, Jada's career looked to be heading in the right direction, but then it was stalled in the following years to come after she gained a role in the film Woo. Variety described it as being an unfunny comedy that brought out the worst in just about everybody involved in the film. In years to come, Jada was only able to land supporting roles, but her record with critics has been spotty at best. Despite her best efforts, studios have not been keen on casting her as a leading lady, and the only successful role she's been able to gain a leading role is for her voice work as Gloria on the animated film franchise Madagascar. She even did a really bad job playing Fish Mooney in Fox's DC crime drama Gotham.
Kris Jenner.
Believe it or not, the Kardashian clan used to be super close to the Smith family, particularly because Kris's kids got along super well with Jada and Will's kids. In fact, Kendall and Jaden are still super close, but we never see the adults hanging out anymore. It's very likely that their friendship didn't survive the whole famous Khloe Kardashian, Tristan Thompson, Jordan Woods love triangle in 2019. After Jordan was exposed for making out with Khloe's ex Tristan, Jada decided to have Jordan on her talk show, Red Table Talk, to reveal her side of the story. The interview featured a ton of sympathy for Jordan as she said her piece about what went down. Jada and Will have known Jordan since she was born because her father worked on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Apparently, after the allegations came to light, Jordan came to Jada asking for help. Quote, "I just wanted her to have a platform to tell her story. That's it. She's a young, beautiful woman inside and out, and me having been a young girl, we sometimes get into situations that we don't necessarily know how to handle." It's likely that all this sympathy towards Jordan led the Kardashian matriarch to cut ties with Jada, as they were never seen getting close after the incident. Promptly after the interview, the Jenners and the Kardashians all unfollowed Jada and Will on Instagram and vice versa. That being said, they still let their kids hang out as Jaden was spotted at Kendall's infamous controversial 2020 birthday bash. Next up is Olivia Jade. While there's no overt animosity between Jada and Olivia Jade, there was definitely some very public discussion of having her on the Red Table Talk show. After the college admissions scandal that put Olivia Jade's mother, Lori Loughlin, in jail for attempting to cheat her daughter's way into college, Olivia Jade attempted to go onto Red Table Talk to set records straight. She went onto the talk show in 2020, and Jada's co-host, her own mother, was extremely public about her distaste for Olivia's appearance. Jada's mom stated, quote, "I fought it tooth and nail. I just found it really ironic that she chose 3 black women to reach out to for her redemption story. I feel like here we are, a white woman coming to a black woman for support when we don't get the same from them. It's bothersome to me on so many levels. Her being here is the epitome of white privilege to me." And honestly, it's hard not to see her point. The whole time Olivia Jade was on the show, she just kept talking about, "Oh, poor me. I didn't realize how privileged I am, blah blah blah." And Jada's mom let her have it. She told Olivia straight to her face, quote, "There is so much violent dehumanization that the black community has to go through on a daily basis, right? There's so much devastation, particularly this year, 2020, and everything being brought to the table. There is so much inequality and inequity that when you come to the table with something like this, it's like, child, please. I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted with everything we have to deal with as a community, and I just don't have the energy to put into the fact that you lost your endorsements and you're not in school right now." Whoa, I can't even imagine that going over super well on the friendship mark, especially considering this public blasting was broadcasted all over. Next up is Tom Segura. While this may be more towards Will Smith, Tom Segura has held absolutely nothing back when torching the Smith family online for the Oscars slap incident. Obviously, a lot of celebrities are ticked off at Will Smith right now, but Tom definitely brought his distaste for Jada into this rant. In a series of tweets, he said, quote, "Let me tell you this, man. The idea that you're entitled thinks because your feelings are hurt, you get to one of the all-time greats because you feel, and then the cowards, the spineless cowards that are in Hollywood and comedy. We have all the lists of the guys. It's insane. It's like a gross exaggeration. You see it all the time. I mean, you see entitlement everywhere, and that was on full display for the world to see. I have zero respect for that, and I feel like more people need to come out and say it. It's unacceptable. Damn. Tom, tell us how you really feel." That being said, it's unclear if the in question is Will or Jada. It could be either or both in this situation. Either way, I doubt Tom will be invited to any Smith family dinners in the near future. Next up is August Alsina. While I think maybe this one is a bit of a stretch because it's hard to hate someone who's actively keeping you relevant, I do think that August Alsina can't be happy with how his name has been dragged through the mud with this weird open marriage thing that he was involved with. He claimed to have dedicated years of his life to Jada after they had initially been introduced when Jaden brought him home as a friend. Although the two had their affair while Jada and Will were separated, it didn't stop the actor from writing an entire album called Entanglements about her. It has also just been announced that he's going to write a memoir about his time with Jada, which I am like 99% sure is to A, keep him relevant, and B, to drag Will and Jada's name through the ringer. Next up is Sheree Zampino. Sheree Zampino is the ex-wife of Will Smith, who he had one son with named Trey. Although this feud is largely over, Jada
Jada openly admitted to really disliking her husband's ex-wife, and the feeling was very mutual. When they began their relationship, Jada and Cherie hated each other. They had a lot of issues with their blended family, which basically meant them all co-parenting the kids that they all had with Will. Zampino recalls a moment when she had to speak to Will about their son Trey, but Jada picked up the phone. Quote, "You picked up the phone and I wasn't really respectful. You basically let me know, I don't really appreciate your tone, and I was like, it doesn't matter. And you hung up on me. I called back and I happened to say, bitch, you're living in the house that I picked out." The two then shared a laugh with one another, so I guess this one doesn't really count because they've definitely made amends with one another. Despite having an extremely rocky relationship to begin with, they seem to get over it for the sake of Will Smith and their kids. Okay, this next one is just for laughs, but Will Smith. I mean, God, they must have had an extremely hard time within their marriage because Jada, for better or for worse, constantly lays it out on the table. She airs her dirty laundry with Will genuinely constantly, and a lot of fans think that the Men in Black actor is so stricken with Jada that he won't see just how inappropriate her behavior is. For example, always on her talk show, Jada insinuated that Will doesn't know how to please her in bed when she was discussing intimacy with Gwyneth Paltrow. Also openly admitted to cheating on Will, and she had an extremely intimate relationship with Tupac Shakur despite her claiming never to have dated him. I can't imagine all that going over super well, especially when we, as the ever-watchful public, know all of these things. I think it would be a much easier pill to swallow if the entire internet weren't calling Will a but here we are. And now that the Oscars slap thing happened because Will was defending Jada's hair loss, it really does feel like a house that's so full of pretension and privilege that I think people have just kind of largely given up on the couple. Anyways, listen, I know it was so tough finding celebrities who openly hate Jada. Not that she's a particularly good person, but like, why even have the public beef?
Number 10, Christopher Titus. The American comedian did not hold back when it came to criticizing Will Smith for the initial incident at the 2022 Oscars when he walked on stage and slapped Chris Rock for joking about his wife Jada. Titus took to the podcast Christopher Titus TV and openly spoke about his disdain for the actor. Quote, "Watching the arrogance of Will Smith that night, I think that Will Smith probably believes he can do anything. In fact, many comedians took particular issue with Chris Rock being attacked, arguing that they should not be afraid for their own safety on stage, just because they like to tell risky jokes." But Titus did not find Will's latest YouTube apology to be sincere either, and was among the many Twitter voices that condemned the video as fake and self-centered. Quote, "Will Smith has lost me again. Dude, Chris said he'll contact you when he's ready. Why are you pushing him? You attacked a man on a global broadcast. You don't get to pick the redemption schedule, and by doing it publicly, you made it about you again." So it seems like Titus doesn't think Will deserves a get out of jail free card just yet. Number 9, Morgan Tremaine. Known for his explosive testimony during the Johnny Depp vs. Amber Heard defamation trial, former TMZ journalist Morgan Tremaine garnered international praise for his infamous, quick-witted comeback to Heard's lawyer Elaine Bredhoft. But Tremaine once again was able to articulate what many people were thinking about the latest apology video from Will Smith. According to the producer, the video appeared more like a PR stunt than a genuine apology. Quote, "This Will Smith apology video has PR team written all over it. They're testing the waters to see how the general public feels about him. Nothing to do with Chris." There might be some truth to how Tremaine feels though, because apart from the obvious product placement, the apology also serves another purpose, as Will is now starting to make big moves in an effort to have a career comeback, which has suffered quite a bit due to him being cancelled. It's been revealed that Smith is planning to star in a sequel to one of his most iconic movies, I Am Legend. So it makes sense that what we are now seeing is the actor slowly trying to rebuild his reputation in Hollywood. Number 8, Chris Rock's brothers. Chris's brother Kenny Rock told the LA Times that he would like to see the Academy take back the Oscar that Will won that night. However, what gets to him most about the entire incident is that he has continued to watch it play out on TV over and over again, and there's nothing that he can do. Quote, "It eats at me watching it over and over again because you've seen a loved one being attacked and there's nothing you can do about it. My brother was no threat to him and you just had no respect for him in that moment. You just belittled him in front of millions of people that watched the show." Tony Rock, who was actually close with Will at one point, called out the actor during a comedy show. Quote, "If you think you're gonna walk up on this stage, this ain't the mother effing Oscars." He threatened to fight back if Will ever tried the same thing with him. In fact, the Oscar winner addressed Tony during his apology apology video. Quote, "I want to apologize to Chris's family, especially Tony Rock. You know, we had a great relationship. You know, Tony Rock was my man, and this is probably irreparable." That seems to be the case, as one Twitter user asked if the actor approved of Will's apology, and he simply responded by saying no. Number 7. The View. Smith received a hell of a lot of criticism for the slap itself, but a lot of people really seem to take issue with the video apology that he released a whole 4 months after the incident. The ladies on The View spoke about how disappointing it was to see Will Smith upload a 5-minute video addressing what is actually a really serious issue, considering it happened to Dave Chappelle too that same month. The hosts voiced their opinion about the Oscar slap and spoke about Will's apology video not long after it was released. While they unanimously agreed that it was a good first step, they said it simply wasn't enough to make good with Chris Rock. Alyssa Farah Griffin said, "I think he's got to go further, and even the fact that he didn't do this in more of an interview format where he might be challenged with some tough questions, I was a little surprised by." She then went on to say that it's a lot easier to say something scripted to camera than to ask, "What was your motivation? Why didn't you then apologize in your acceptance speech?" Alyssa feels Smith should have sat down with Oprah because then she would have challenged him. Joy Behar also agreed with her and thought he should have come on The View instead. But it's clear that they felt the video format of the apology made it much too easy for him to evade criticism. Number 6. Megyn Kelly. The veteran journalist believed that Smith made it all about himself at the Oscars when he walked on stage and slapped his longtime friend. Megyn Kelly was super critical of his actions that night and felt that the actor simply saw an opportunity to make himself appear as the tough guy standing up for his partner. She said that most guys would have handled it after the set and spoken to the comedian backstage. Then Kelly insisted that Smith used his 2 minutes on the world stage to defend his actions when he should have been apologizing immediately for how he acted. Quote, "It was a defense of him losing his temper. He should have got up there and he should have said, 'I'm very sorry for my bad behavior. I apologize to Chris, to the other nominees, and to the people whose attention I've wrongly dragged away from them on what would be their greatest night of their lives.'" Well, does she feel any differently now? Not really. In fact, she recently called out his newest YouTube video on the Megyn Kelly show and reiterated her comments, this time suggesting that Smith is only sorry now because he has a new movie coming out, so he really needs that public forgiveness to ensure its success. Number 5. Bill Maher. The comedian and television host made it pretty clear that he despises Will Smith on several occasions, most notably on one episode of his talk show Real Time with Bill Maher, which aired on April 1st. Bill reacted to the explosive outrage against the actor at the time. Quote, "To Will Smith, stay strong and I got your back," before following it up with, "April Fools, you're a D." Maher went on to say that he couldn't feel sorry for Pinkett Smith because according to him, comparing a woman to Demi Moore looking her hottest is not exactly the worst insult he's ever heard. Then he made a pretty controversial comparison. Quote, "I mean, alopecia is not leukemia." And no, he has not changed his opinion since. In fact, in another episode, Bill did a revived edition of Explaining Jokes to Idiots where he made fun of cancel culture, the increased attacks against comedians, and called Will Smith humor impaired. He then said that it comes down to doing crowd work while hosting the Oscars. Celebrities should try to be a good sport and allow themselves to be made fun of for 1 minute. The politically incorrect alum even noted that Chris Rock's joke was initially received as funny by the audience, including Will Smith, who was initially spotted laughing before he decided to do anything else. Number 4. Wanda Sykes. She co-hosted this year's Oscars along with Amy Schumer and Regina Hall. So comedian Wanda Sykes really saw everything unfold firsthand on Hollywood's Night of Nights, and she had a lot to say about it. Right after the Oscars, she addressed Will Smith's actions. Quote, "For them to let him stay in that room and enjoy the rest of the show and accept his award, I was like, how gross is this? This is just the wrong message," before joking that she wanted to be able to run out after he won and say, "Unfortunately, Will couldn't be here tonight." And while performing a stand-up comedy show in Orlando, she brought it up again, saying, "I'm still traumatized. I couldn't believe he was still sitting there. Shouldn't you be sitting there with a lawyer or LAPD?" She added that he hopes he gets his life together, but until then, F him. Wanda clearly hasn't changed her opinion of Smith. In fact, while appearing as a guest on a recent episode of Live with Kelly and Ryan, they asked her if she'd be open to hosting the Oscars again, and she just said, "Oh, hell no." To be fair, she did happen to co-host the most dramatic Academy Awards ceremony in recent history, as she recalled the incident again. Quote, "So everybody's just gonna sit here? I was like, the show just kept going on, and I looked behind the curtain and he's still sitting here. What is happening? What is going on? It was crazy. It was just bizarre. Number 3. Sharon Osbourne. In an April interview with the Sunday Times, the former talk co-host expressed her opinion on the Oscar incident. Osbourne made the comparison when explaining the hypocrisy she sees where some people are too scared to make judgments to a person's face about their behavior, but will do so behind a computer screen or behind their back, and used the recent Oscars incident between Will Smith and Chris Rock as an example. Quote, "When he wins Best Actor award, everybody stands up. It's like, you're such hypocrites. You're going to go home and say how disgraceful his behavior was, but you stand up and give him a standing ovation." But most controversially, she then went on to compare Will Smith to Hitler, insinuating that no matter how horrible someone is, the industry will still try and find a way to make money off of them. Although her experience isn't exactly like Will Smith's, Sharon Osbourne dealt with plenty of criticism of her own, following her comments on the talk over the Piers Morgan and Meghan Markle feud. After a heated discussion with her and the talk show co-host last year, she was fired from the show by CBS, so she's no stranger to backlash herself, but clearly she didn't mind comparing Will Smith to possibly the worst person who ever existed. Number 2. Rosie O'Donnell. The comedian actually compared Will Smith to former President Trump, blasting the Oscar winner as a narcissistic madman who isn't being held accountable for slapping Chris Rock during the Oscars. O'Donnell took to Twitter to condemn Smith for the stunning confrontation at the 94th Annual Academy Awards. She wrote to her more than 1 million Twitter followers, quote, "We watched him do it. Then, like the Trump years, we don't hold anyone accountable. Shame on us, shame on Will." O'Donnell made it very clear that she believes that the Oscars had failed everyone by not publicly denouncing Will right after the incident occurred and still allowing him to accept his award. But comedians do tend to stand together on this issue, and she went on to praise Chris Rock for his composure after he was attacked on stage. Quote, "So upsetting on every level. Bravo to Chris Rock for not eviscerating Will Smith, which he could do any day of the week. He walked away from a sad display of toxic masculinity." Those words sound pretty harsh, but it's very clear that she absolutely hates Smith for his erratic behavior that night, and the message it sends to other comedians. And coming in at number 1, Chris Rock himself. The comedian has not publicly commented directly on the slap, including in the wake of Smith's recent video apology, which was directly addressed to him. Instead, Chris Rock chose to use comedy to speak about the incident. During his apology video, the actor insisted that he's reached out to Chris, and the message that came back is that he's not ready to talk, which couldn't be more apparent. He first brought it up during a stand-up set at London's Royal Albert Hall. Quote, "I'm okay. If anybody's wondering, got most of my hearing back." He followed that up with, "Don't expect me to talk about the BS. Your tickets were expensive, but not that expensive." Rock also referenced the incident when Dave Chappelle was attacked on stage near the end of his performance during the Netflix Is a Joke festival. When talking about the assailant, the comedian said, "I thought that was Will Smith." After the recent apology was posted, Rock continued to make jokes while on stage in Atlanta. Quote, "If everybody claims to be a victim, then nobody will hear the real victims. Even me getting smacked by Suge Smith, I went to work the next day. I got kids." He also added that anyone who says words hurt has never been punched in the face. Gotta love his take on that.
Coming in at number 10 on our list is Mia Farrow. Mia Farrow is an actress who was extremely outspoken about her reaction to the ill-fated Oscars night. After it happened, she took to Twitter to post, quote, "It was just a joke. Jokes are what Chris Rock does. Always has been edgy. This was a mild joke for him, and I love G.I. Jane. What I saw was one of Hollywood's most powerful movie stars stalking onto a stage to strike a comedian for an unfortunate joke about his gorgeous wife's shaved head. Anyone who is okay with that has probably never been hit by a powerful man. As we advise our kids, use your words." A lot of people in the comments to her post were duking it out, with some people equating alopecia to cancer, and others saying that Will Smith should be jailed for slapping Chris. My favorite reply was someone linking another tweet saying, quote, "It's actually not funny at all. Will Smith could have killed him with that slap. What if his hand had been full of bees and Chris Rock was allergic to bees and one of the bees stung Chris and nobody had an EpiPen? Not funny now, is it?" Next up is Howard Stern, who had a whole show planned before he decided to scrap it all and focus on the Oscars incident instead. Quote, "Well, I had a whole show planned, but I gotta throw that out because I want to vent about this Oscars thing that occurred. The blunt reporter certainly held nothing back and did in fact vent quite readily about the whole situation. Quote, "This is a sign of great mental illness when you can't control your impulse. Not only that, it was hardly an insulting joke. It wasn't even a good joke." It may be safe to say that Howard Stern wasn't too fond of Will Smith after the headline made the incident. He even compared Will to former US President Donald Trump. He also criticized the Academy's handling of the situation, including the lack of security taking action. While there have been mixed reports on whether or not Will Smith was asked to leave the ceremony following the slap, the star still went onto stage to collect his award for Best Actor mere moments later. Howard Stern was upset that no one seemed to care and even cheered for him once he won the award. Quote, "Will Smith harmed another human being, and you guys did nothing." Another celebrity who will definitely never work with Will Smith is Judd Apatow. Probably the most embarrassing set of tweets to come out of the whole Oscars slap situation were Judd Apatow's, which are since deleted. Although he was one of the first people to call out Will Smith for his behavior, some think that he took it way too far. Judd wrote on Twitter, quote, "He could have killed him. That's pure out of control rage and aggression." After he received pushback for the tweet, the 40-year-old Virgin director elaborated his viewpoints on the SiriusXM pop culture spotlight. He admitted that he wasn't actually watching the Oscars when he took to Twitter, but was instead informed of the incident while on the phone with a friend. That being said, he did stick by his statements about Will Smith in other interviews. Quote, "As soon as that line is crossed, really anything can happen. That's what happened, but something else could have happened too." Judd also told Pop Culture Spotlight, quote, "I just think there certainly is a way of handling dissatisfaction. We should never tell people that the solution is to break that barrier and leap on the stage and commit an act of harm in front of people who are inspired by you." Coming in at number 7, Rosie O'Donnell. Not unlike Howard Stern's take, Rosie O'Donnell also had a problem with how the Academy Award organizers handled the situation. Clearly, Rosie was signing off to Team Chris Rock when she tweeted out, quote, "So upsetting on every level. Bravo to Chris Rock for not eviscerating Will Smith, which he could do any day of the week. He walked away. Bravo from a sad display of toxic masculinity from a narcissistic madman. If only they would take it into the ring, then we could truly see who is eviscerating who." In addition to making it clear that she believed Chris Rock could demolish Smith in, I guess, a battle of comedic minds, Rosie also heavily criticized the Academy for their initial response to the entire situation. In a separate tweet written in response to a statement released by the organization about not condoning violence, she asked, quote, "Then why did you do nothing?" O'Donnell didn't stop there. She also spent quite a bit of time retweeting messages from her friends and other Twitter users that all condemn Will Smith's actions and praise Chris Rock for not acting in retaliation. Kathy Griffin is up next as someone who likely won't work with Will Smith based on how she reacted to the Oscars, having very clearly sided with Chris Rock in this situation. She tweeted out, quote, "Let me tell you something. It's a very bad practice to walk up on stage and physically harm a comedian. Now we all have to worry about who wants to be the next Will Smith in comedy clubs and theaters." It's perhaps extremely unsurprising that Griffin, who herself loves to push the boundaries of comedy, would side with Chris Rock in this situation and be more concerned about the safety of comedians after seeing Chris Rock get slapped over a joke. Given her own controversies of inciting violence against former President Donald Trump that landed her in trouble with the Secret Service, we weren't surprised to see that she got some pushback from her tweets about being kind to one another. Next up is comedian Jim Carrey. It's unlikely any comedian in general will side with Will Smith, considering the precedents it sets. But while touring for Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Jim Carrey was asked about his reaction to Will Smith getting on stage and hitting Chris. The comedian had this to say, quote, "I was sickened. I was sickened by the standing ovation. I felt like Hollywood is just spineless en masse. And it really felt like this is a real clear indication that we're not the cool club anymore. I'd have announced this morning that I was suing Will for $200 million because that video is going to be there forever. It's going to be ubiquitous. That insult is going to last a very long time. If you want to yell from the audience or disapprove or show disapproval or say something on Twitter or whatever, you do not have the right to walk up on stage and smack somebody in the face because they said words." Next up is Luke Skywalker himself, Mark Hamill. He has always been extremely outspoken on Twitter, and the Oscar slap incident was no exception. The night of the incident, he tweeted, quote, "Stand-up comics are very adept at handling hecklers. Physical harm, not so much." Okay, I abbreviated this because I'm not allowed to say a lot of words due to our feudal lords at YouTube, but you get the idea. The tweet left a heated debate in the comments, with one user writing, quote, "Chris Rock was wrong. Mocking Jada's medical condition, especially on stage in front of hundreds of people, is despicable. I don't blame Will for getting upset or for doing what he did." While another user wrote, quote, "You can't just harm people. Even if someone says something Part of being an adult is understanding that you can't just hit people. I like Will Smith and I have compassion for his wife, but he was wrong to hit Chris Rock. Coming in at number 3 is Janet Hubert. Janet Hubert has had beef with Will Smith that predates the Oscars, thank God, all the way back to the 90s when she worked alongside him in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. She played Aunt Viv for 3 seasons before their beef led to her being replaced in 1993. She told HuffPost decades later, quote, "My departure was planned for a long time. There will never be a reunion for The Fresh Prince. Will Smith and Alfonso destroyed a 20-year career with untruths. I got slammed. Will apologized later in an Essence magazine article, but it still lingers. It's still there." Apparently, the beef started when Smith refused to vouch for Hubert when she wanted a pay raise and a contract renegotiation. Meanwhile, tons of rumors circulated that she was notoriously extremely difficult to work with, which derailed her career and she never really recovered from it. That being said, they did have a tentative truce when Will invited her onto the Fresh Prince reunion that she earlier said would never happen. Although I doubt she'd go through filming anything with him again. Next up is Chris Rock's brother, Tony Rock. Absolutely no surprise that he comes to his sibling's defense. Airing his frustrations on a stand-up set a few days after the Oscar slap incident, Tony stated, quote, "If you think you're gonna walk up on this stage, this ain't the Oscars. And if you walk your ass up here, you ain't nominated for but these hands." As the crowd cheered, Tony took it a step further, adding, quote, "I didn't want to start the show like that. You're gonna hit my brother." Tony also made it clear on Twitter after Will Smith apologized to Chris that he does not accept the apology on his brother's behalf by stating, quote, "No," when asked if he forgave him. Last but certainly not least is Chris Rock, who was the recipient of the slap in question. Interestingly, he said absolutely nothing about the slap and has kept extremely quiet. He's currently on tour and has made zero mention of the incident, although I'm sure he could have gotten away with a few digs considering that most people took his side. But that being said, I doubt he'd be running to star alongside Will Smith in any comedy anytime soon.
Number 10, affair with August. So by now, we all know Jada's affair with August as Lena, but it was a secret that she never wanted exposed, and something that she tried to deny up until the very last minute. This is how it all went down. While promoting his 3rd album, August sat down with the Breakfast Club and claimed that the Smiths, whom he considers to be like his family, had an open marriage, and Will allegedly gave the singer permission to date Jada. Quote, "I actually sat down with Will and had a conversation. He gave me his blessing." He also admitted that they deeply love each other, but that he felt like not talking about their relationship was affecting him professionally and personally, because it was a secret that was weighing him down. This was explosive when it first came out, and it's clear that Jada would have prevented this if she could. Almost immediately, her publicist came out with statements denying any romantic involvement, stating that the claims were absolutely not true. But it was already too late to backtrack, and the couple finally decided to air out their dirty laundry and went on the Red Table Talk about a week later. Number 9, feud with Gabrielle Union. Unbeknownst to the world, Jada-Pinkett Smith and Gabrielle Union were secretly not speaking to each other for almost 2 decades. The actresses, who both gained prominence in the late 90s, had a long-standing tension between them that led to a 17-year-long feud. Although neither of them can pinpoint the exact moment that caused the rift, both admit to feeling awkward around each other during this period. The two finally put an end to the silence in an episode of the Red Table Talk, where they both talked about how they've grown in terms of female relationships. Jada said, quote, "She and I did not talk for 17 years and we could not remember why. There was just a tension between us every time we would see each other." She went on to say that there was some moment where they had left a bad taste in each other's mouths. Years later, when they finally got on the phone to figure out what exactly went wrong, they couldn't figure it out. Jada went on to suggest that it was probably just the two of them being young divas, but even they don't really know for sure. Number 8, Scientology school. This next one is super crazy. Leah Remini claimed that the Smiths founded a school based on Scientology. So to give some background, the couple opened the New Village Leadership Academy, a mysterious private school in Calabasas, California, that opened its doors in 2008 before quietly closing in 2013. While Jada furiously denied the allegations in a 2009 interview with Ebony magazine, quote, "All I can say is that it is not a Scientology school. Now, if you don't trust me and you are questioning my integrity, that's a whole different matter." But the Daily Beast actually spoke to 4 former teachers at the school who all admitted that Scientology is not only bled into the curriculum, but that it was essentially a Scientology school. Also, most of the teachers were followers of the controversial religion themselves, and there were pictures of L. Ron Hubbard hanging on the walls, who was a science fiction writer and founder of Scientology in the 70s. Not only that, but on the Academy's website, which has since been removed, it actually mentioned the study technology as, quote, "an educational model developed by L. Ron Hubbard. Number 7. Investigated by CPS. This incident was not widely known at all because it happened in 2015 when Willow was barely a teenager. Jada admitted on the Red Table Talk in 2019 that she was furious after Child Protective Services showed up to the family home to investigate whether or not her daughter Willow was being starved. It all started when a 14-year-old Willow was photographed while lying in bed next to her shirtless family friend, who was 20 at the time. While she insisted that the photo was innocent, it was definitely extremely controversial, and CPS also thought so too. So they decided to intervene after the agency received a complaint accusing the Smiths of starving their teenager. When recalling the incident, Jada admitted that it was the first time she got really furious. Quote, "I was looking at the lady and the whole time I was thinking, you could be helping so many kids right now, and you're wasting your time with a child who has everything they need." According to the actress, both Willow and Jaden exhibited passive behavior throughout the visit and said that it was like their own personal protest to being investigated by the agency. Number 6. Substance misuse. When Jada was young, she had some very real issues dealing with the addiction that came with substance misuse. She also acknowledged that she drank excessively and used all kinds of narcotics. Quote, "For me, drinking red wine was like drinking a glass of water. I drank a lot in high school and then I went on to mix everything up." She then recalls a time that she mixed a variety of illicit substances that are a dangerous combination when used together. While on her talk show, she recounted before her mother and daughter that she was high functioning during the week and consumed almost no alcohol for several days, but spent her weekends at parties. Quote, "From Thursday to Monday morning, it was non-stop. Things went on like this for a while, until one episode that changed everything forever. It was in 1996, during the filming of The Nutty Professor, that a young Jada went to work still high off one of her partying binges, and she was in very bad condition. She went on to say that she passed out on set and told everyone it must have been from expired medication, and that was the wake-up call she needed. So when looking back on that time, she sees the whole thing as a miracle." Number 5. Marriage to Will. In December of 1997, the couple got married. A year later, Jaden, their first child, was born. In 2000, they became the parents of a girl they named Willow. Although her marriage had already surpassed 2 decades, which is a really long time when you look at other Hollywood couples, there were many secrets about their real feelings towards each other that were kept hidden from the public eye. Jada eventually confessed that at first she did not want to marry Will. She was 3 months pregnant at the time and felt that she was pressured to say "I do." Quote, "I was so angry because they forced me to get married. So angry that I walked all the damn aisle to the altar crying." So on their wedding day, Jada got cold feet and actually didn't want to go through with it. There was also a time when their marriage hit rock bottom, and it happened when Will realized that his wife had cried for 45 days straight over their troubled marriage. Quote, "She would wake up and start crying. She did it for 45 consecutive days. I know this because I wrote it down in a diary." He also said that it was a time he felt worst in their marriage. This was very difficult for the actor because he had been trying to paint the picture of a perfect family, but it was only putting stress on the couple. Number 4. Leah Remini's Accusations. In her memoir, Troublemaker, Leah recalls a time that she and her husband, Angelo, spent time at Tom Cruise's Beverly Hills mansion when he invited a group of well-known Scientologists and other celebrities, including the Smiths. This is where the story gets a little crazy. He announced to all the guests that he wanted to play hide and seek. Leah somehow got out of it and claimed that her stilettos were too high to run. While it sounds a little weird, in her book, Leah called the Smiths as more famous friends of the church, and even told the Daily Beast in 2017, quote, "I know Jada's in. She's been in Scientology a long time. I never saw Will there, but I saw Jada at the Celebrity Center." She even goes on to mention the Scientology school that they opened and reveals that despite what Jada has been saying, that she is indeed good friends with Tom Cruise and an active member of the controversial religion. Then on Watch What Happens Live in July 2017, Jada told Andy Cohen that the hide and seek story just wasn't true, and later posted on Twitter, quote, "I have studied Dianetics and appreciate the merits of study tech, but I am not a Scientologist." Number 3. Addiction to adult videos. The actress confessed a little known fact about her personal life. One of them was that she used to be addicted to sex. Quote, "My types of addictions jump from one side to the other. When I was younger, I thought I had some kind of sex addiction and that everything could be fixed with that." She claimed that she was addicted to adult movies at a time in her life when she had decided to practice abstinence. But her addiction got out of control and she was forced to stop consuming X-rated movies. She went on to say that she got hooked on hardcore movies that were very disturbing. Quote, "It's the behavior that's attached to it, because if you want to have a lot of sex, that's great, but why are you having all that sex? That's what you've got to look at." Jada also shared that once she took it too far when it came to pleasuring herself, and she admitted that while she was taking a break from men, she became way too addicted to doing it herself. And at her lowest, she was doing doing it 5 times a day, before she suddenly decided one day that it was enough because it had taken control of her life. Number 2. Issues with Chris Rock. Viewers of this year's Oscars were left completely in shock when Will infamously walked up on stage and slapped comedian Chris Rock across the face for making jokes about Jada. But what most people don't know is that the beef between the Smiths and Rock actually goes back several years, so the tension has always been there. Chris once took aim at Jada while he was hosting the 2016 Oscars, because the couple had very publicly decided to boycott the event. At the time, their protest was due to the fact that no actors of color were nominated for the 2nd year in a row. Chris said, quote, "Jada boycotting the Oscars is like me boycotting Rihanna's panties. I wasn't invited." He actually said this during his opening monologue, and it really seemed to sting the actress. The comedian also took a dig at Will at the very same time. He spoke about the actor's performance in the movie Concussion, saying that it's not fair that Will was this good and didn't get nominated, then added it's also not fair that Will was paid $20 million for Wild Wild West. It was such a burn that the couple was clearly not able to shake off. The open relationship. While on the Red Table Talk, some more very questionable things came out that exposed the nature of Will and Jada's relationship. Basically, Will implied that the couple's decision to open up their marriage was Jada's idea, because she told him that she never believed in conventional marriage and that they needed to figure out how to make themselves happy individually. So it was almost like she told him that happiness can be found with other people. But Jada's affair with August started to make a bit more sense when she openly spoke about her disappointing sex life with Will. While talking with Gwyneth Paltrow, Jada outright said that keeping the spark alive in their marriage is hard, implying that although they've been married for almost 25 years, he still doesn't know exactly what she wants in the bedroom. Quote, "Because I think you expect your partner to know what you need, especially when it comes to sex. It's like, well, if you love me, you should know. You should read my mind. That's a huge pitfall." It must have been a little embarrassing for Will when Jada insinuated that he wasn't meeting her needs, but now it's obvious she was the one pushing for the open relationship.